devices to silent. Welcome along everybody tonight. I would also like to welcome our viewers at home who are watching the meeting via the live stream. Welcome. Could I ask you please to be upstanding, and Deputy Mayor Migdale, if you could read out the opening prayer for us.
Almighty God, we ask you to guide us in all our discussions to show goodness, honesty, understanding and wisdom in all that we undertake to do. May we respect each other's views at all times, and we ask all of this in your name. Amen.
Councillor Giudice, could you please read the acknowledgement of country?
On behalf of councillors, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, on which this meeting is taking place, and show our respect for elders past, present and emerging.
Thank you. You can take your seats. Without prior approval, any recording of this meeting is prohibited. No action should be taken on any resolution of council prior to written advice from the city being received. That brings us to the official opening. Ladies and gentlemen, I declare the council meeting of the 15th of October 2024 open at 6:30 p.m. Item 2, apologies. I have apologies tonight from Councillor Criado and from Councillor Thornton. Item 3, approved leave of absence. I have an approved leave of absence from Councillor Papard from the 17th September to the 22nd of October. Disclosure of interest. There were no disclosures from the Planning and Development Committee meeting held on the 10th of September. Council meeting tonight. Councillor Damien Giudice has disclosed an impartial interest in item 14.2 as he is an employee of Development WA, that is the developer of the ECU project. Councillors, any disclosures for item 18.1 will be discussed prior to the item. Councillors, are there any other disclosures for the evening not related to that item? Councillor Hatton.
I'll submit in a moment a disclosure for item 12.1 PCS1.
Thank you. And paperwork, if you can get that. Yep. Thank you. Any other disclosures at the moment, councillors? Councillor Ree.
I'd like to put my one for 18.1 on the table now, please.
Sure.
I am a member of Perth Glory. Thank you.
I don't think the item names.
No, it just, I'll leave it up to the CEO.
That's why we don't want it
Impartial,
now. It's confidential.
Is it sorry, I'm now a little bit confused. Is it confidential as to what our conflict of interest will be? That
no, but it's confidential as to the commercial and confidence.
But
the best you wait. It's a lease. Trust us on this one.
No, what I'm saying is that...
That's why it will be discussed, because everyone's got their own questions regarding it. But
well, the questions
it'll still be on record.
The accountability and the transparency of
it will be on record.
Where conflict of interest? Is that what you're saying?
Councillor, take a seat. We'll discuss it later, behind closed doors. It's a confidential item because of the lease agreement, and you'll say stuff that...
All I'm saying is I'm a member.
Exactly. Councillors, are there any other disclosures? Thank you. Item 5, petitions. Councillor Perkoff, would you like to table your petition regarding the bridge at Porter Street?
I certainly would. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have an e-petition titled Rebuild the Boardwalk at Porter Street, Lake Gwelup. The following e-petition contains 660 verified signatures which were received by the city. And it reads, we, the undersigned, do respectfully request that the Council seek funding to rebuild the Lake Gwelup boardwalk between Porter and Pascoe Streets. In February this year, a pedestrian bridge that connected Gwelup to Karrinyup, Porter Street to Pascoe Street, was destroyed in a fire, and it looks like it is not going to be rebuilt for some time. Understandingly, it is a tricky situation, but to resolve this situation, funding will be required to rebuild the bridge at about 1.2, but probably $1.5 million. The boardwalk was used by many people to get to and from shopping centres, schools, beaches, parks, etc., instead of getting there by car. It is also an important bike boulevard that connects communities. It was a landmark that has gone, and we truly believe that it needs to be rebuilt, and I say so.
Thank you. Councillor Olo, would you like to present your petition requesting a footpath?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Petition request for a footpath on Jundana Drive, Jundana, The following petition containing 42 verified signatures was received by the City. We, the undersigned residents of Gindana Drive and concerned citizens, urge the City of Stirling to reconsider the prioritisation of constructing a footpath along Gindana Drive, specifically the stretch between Stoneham Street and Tyler Street. Despite our repeated appeals and safety concerns, the City has deemed our request low on the priority list due to budget constraints and standardised prioritisation process. However, the unique safety hazard posed by the crest on Gindana Drive significantly increases the risk of accidents for both pedestrians and motorists. We call upon the City to conduct a thorough assessment, taking into account the specific safety concerns highlighted by the residents and stakeholders. Furthermore, we propose that the signed petition be presented to the Council to evaluate the urgency of this matter and to ensure the safety and well-being of our community are adequately addressed. Together, we advocate for the timely construction of a footpath on Gindana Drive to enhance the safety of our neighbourhood.
Thank you. And Councillor Dudek, would you like to table your petition regarding opposition to a footpath on Montrose Way?
Yes, please. Might be quite timely then. Opposition to a footpath plan on Montrose Way, Nollamara, and the following petition contained 21 verified signatures was received by the City. We, the residents of Montrose Way and Nollamara, oppose the planned construction of a footpath on our street. Montrose Way is a quiet local street used primarily by its residents, with minimal foot and vehicle traffic. Walking along the road is already safe, and adding a footpath would disrupt the current parking arrangements, forcing cars onto the street, narrowing the road, and reducing safety and accessibility. The planned footpath would not improve the overall appearance of the area, as many verges feature well-maintained lawns, gardens, and paved areas used for essential parking. These green spaces and parking solutions are more visually pleasing and functional than a concrete path. Furthermore, surrounding streets already have footpaths, making this project unnecessary for improving accessibility. This petition reflects the democratic views of Montrose Way residents who believe the funds for this project would be better allocated to initiatives that have broader community support.
Sounds like an easy solution there between you two. Have a chat after the meeting. Councillors, are there any other unverified petitions tonight? If not, can I have a mover and a seconder to accept the petitions? Move Councillor Hollow, seconder Councillor Ryan. Just a show of hands to accept those petitions this evening. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 6 is responses to previous questions from members of the public taken on notice, and those responses are published in the minutes of that meeting of 17th of September. Item 7, the moment you've been waiting for, public question time. We have received some notification, so I will start by inviting Mr. Rodney King up, if you'd like to come up. Just on the bottom of your microphone, if you press the silver button on the right and it will stay on, you can leave that on from now. And at the start, all we need is just your name and suburb, please.
My name's Rodney King and I live in Gwelup.
And then your first question.
I raised the petition to rebuild the Lake Gwelup boardwalk between Pascoe and Porter Street, and it's received 660 signatures. As you guys are aware, these are not Facebook reactions or Facebook page joins, which can be easily manipulated and are not representative of a positive or negative position. In addition, Facebook stats are skewed by people outside the city and even outside the country. The 660 e-petition votes are from City of Stirling residents, as you know, who have entered their names, home locations and email addresses. The Boardwalk e-petition never made it to the mainstream media. It was never shared. It was only ever shared on 3 or 4 community Facebook groups. I never erected signs to promote the rebuild. If I had have promoted the e-petition, I believe I would have got many more. I would also like to remind people that there is no large community group who oppose the rebuilding of the Gwelup boardwalk, and there are no highly regarded environmental scientists who are advising against the rebuild. With that in mind, it's my understanding that the rebuild of the Lake Gwelup boardwalk is much more desired than any other proposed boardwalk in the city. not just in numbers who want it, but also the lack of opposition against it. So my first question is probably around the costing. I think it was 1.2, and I was wondering if there was an update on a cost for the rebuild.
Mr Murphy?
Through you, Chair. That is a high-level costing. No detailed work's been done, so that is a high-level costing at the 1.2 million mark, based on the size of the bridge.
The second question, would the council entertain the possibility of raising funds for the project?
Oh, look, that would have to be considered. I'm aware that Councillor Perkov has already raised a notice of motion that will be presented at the end of the meeting tonight. That will get officers to have a look at the feasibility, but also have those discussions. Obviously, it wasn't at the time of the fire, it wasn't a City of Stirling asset, as you're probably aware. But we would have discussions with Watercorp and with the state government around that.
And that was, I think you answered my last question as well. Right. But thank you, guys. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Well done on the petition. Bob Mitchell. Evening. Your name and suburb, Mr Mitchell?
Good evening, Mayor. Robert Mitchell, Karrinyup. Good evening, councillors, council officers and fellow people in the gallery. My first question tonight relates to a item that's on the agenda tonight with the proposed motion of applying for the Edith Cowan University, what was it? Mount Lawley campus applicant, not a advocating to the government and other organisations, notice of motion, recommendation, the Chief Executive Officer write to the Development WA, requesting the consideration of retention of additional existing key infrastructure at the Edith Cowan Mount Lawley campus. Now, I want to go back
Mr Mitchell,
2000
Mr Mitchell, can I ask you, just ask a question regarding it?
I will ask the question, certainly. Yeah, I asked the question on the 21st of February 2003, and I asked at that time what the council were involved in. And you, Mayor, advised that there is no vying by the city for the theatre management. And here we are, a year later, and we've got this here going. Now, here's my question. And I say here, below is the previous response to a question regarding the secondary use of Edith Cowan University performing arts facilities left in situ. My understanding of the state government assets is that they are either disposed of or put to another purposeful use within state government controlled business units. And that goes over all governments. Clearly, the Education Department wished to make...
Mr Mitchell, so what is your question regarding it, please?
It is about the council getting involved with trying to get the assets of Edith Cowan University via the state government assets through WA Development, trying to get these assets and manage them, when you, Mayor, said you weren't going to.
Yeah, so that's incorrect, Mr Mitchell. So
Excuse me.
No, I'll answer it. So, for a start, it wasn't, just to be clear, it wasn't, I know it was only a mistake, but it wasn't 2003, it was 2023. This council has written to the state government and previously requested the state government if they would hand over the performing arts theatre component of Mount Lawley. We have requested that. My response didn't say we wouldn't vie for theatre management. It said the state government had categorically said that the city couldn't have it and that they'd pass it on to the high school. We've then had recently a meeting with Development WA, which was fairly basic and high level, and unproductive, I would suggest, in terms of us having any input. There has been no engagement to date, and this week we found out that Development WA are going to the public to seek people to be on an advisory group for that area. So the state government haven't made a decision yet, but to date, the city has had very little contact from Development WA in being involved in it. I know there's a motion on the table tonight from Councillor Migdale, and the city is certainly interested in pursuing the opportunity to take over some of those assets in terms of community use in the future. Your second question, Mr Mitchell.
Could I just enlighten you at the end of that?
No, just another question, Mr
Excuse me.
No, another question, Mr
There
Mitchell.
are 6 libraries in the city of Stirling. There are sport and leisure centres, 6 of them. You are going to get these assets off the state government and use them for the local community when there is at Dianella and at Inglewood
I'm not sure.
library.
I'm not sure what you're asking, Mr Mitchell. You're very unclear. I'm not sure if you're saying you oppose the city asking to look after these assets or you're asking us to do that. Can you be clear in your question? Your second question, Mr Mitchell.
Well, it'll set a precedent. I'll go on to my second question, Mayor. Now, this results in the parking at Karrinyup Primary School for staff from the Karrinyup Shopping Centre. I live near the school, and for the past over 20 years, there's been a reasonable response in relation to the movement of vehicles and things like that. And my question tonight is, there's a proposal because they have to apply to get the permission as a development application from the City of Stirling. They applied on the 9th of August. I received a letter dated the 16th of September, and I received that on the 26th of September
Again,
with a
Mr.
closing date
Can I have a
of
question,
the
Mr.
7th of October. Now, I found out since
Mr Mitchell, I'm sorry to do this. It's just we've got a lot of questions to get through. Is there a question? Just ask the question regarding it. We understand what you're talking about, but ask the question. What would you like to know?
The change in proposal for this place, there's going to be 411 parking bays on the reserve. And the part that really annoys me, and the residents of Karrinyup are very upset about it, is that every weekend during the construction of Karrinyup West Residential project until practical completion, they are going to use that oval right throughout the year, every weekend, for their, well, whatever, staff to park there. What about the people of Karrinyup that use that reserve of a weekend for recreation? It's an absolute disgrace.
Thank you.
That's. I want you to consider that, because at the moment,
So I will get you an answer. So, Ms Hughes, if you could
moment,
provide a
the,
reasoning behind it, please.
the proponent and the owner.
Thanks, Mr Mitchell. We've got your question. I'll get a response to you. Ms Hughes?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Mr Mitchell, for the question. There is an application that is being considered by the city at the moment for parking that is only related to Christmas periods and holidays and the busy periods for the shopping centre. In addition to that, obviously, there is an approval for the Karrinyup West Village Towers. They haven't started construction of that. We are under the impression that they won't start that until sometime next year, but they haven't even finalised their conditions and things like that from their original approval. So that may still be some time off. So the application we're considering at the moment is just relating to the peak periods that the shopping centre has to try and deal with car parking. That application's under assessment at the moment, and we're still having future discussions with the applicant and also the Department of Education.
At the present moment, the
Mr Mitchell,
applicant...
Mr Mitchell, I need you to move on to your third question, please, with respect. I'm sorry, but what happens is we're 20 minutes in and I've still got 20 people who've got questions as well.
I've got another question here. It's in relation to uncommitted funds. And I spoke with Ms Hoskins earlier tonight about it. But somewhere along the track, I don't know where, I've been told that there's collectively $309 million of uncommitted funds, and that's banking, whatever. And I found an old copy of the electors meeting in the 17th of November 2014, and I asked a question in relation to it. What were the uncommitted funds then? They were 80 million. And I asked Miss Hoskins tonight what the current one is, and she indicated to me it wasn't 309 million. But if it was, and I've got this figure from somewhere, and if it is true, taking 80 million off, and just in the 10-year program that the CEO at the time told us about, that they had this financial plan. So every year, over 10 years, $22.9 million has been, on an average, set aside. I don't know whether it is that amount, that figure, but something is being put aside, and that 80 million on it as well. Well, it's very hard. Well, I'm retired. I'm not going to spend days sifting through it.
I'll make it easy for you, Mr Mitchell. So Ms Hawkins will respond to you in writing. We understand your question. We'll respond to you in writing with the uncommitted amount that sits in the account and some of the reserves, because some of those would be reserve fundings, and what they're legislated. Some of them are legislated what they can be used for. But we'll respond to you with a list in writing, so you have it all there. We'll do the work for you, Mr Mitchell.
Sounds to me like the council better have a bit of a look at how they conduct business. 10 years ago, that was written.
Thanks, Mr Mitchell.
And no one's heard about it.
Thank you, Mr Mitchell. So public question time has now been in progress for 15 minutes. So as chair, I will rule to extend public question time so we can answer some more questions. And I will ask Volker Schaefer if you'd like to come forward, please. Okay, just start with your name and suburb.
No problem. Good evening. My name is Volker Schaefer, and I live in Nollamara. Thank you for the forum. My questions are related to the petition that was tabled by Councillor Dudek regarding opposition of the footpath planned to be constructed in Montrose Way.
Yes.
So it's my first time at the forum here, so I'll please you by combining my question 1 and 2 because it probably makes more sense, and I'll speed it up.
That always pleases me.
Yes. All right. So, in view of the recent petition demonstrating opposition to the footpath plan on Montrose Way in Nollamara, will the council now reconsider the necessity of constructing a footpath in Montrose Way, or, in addition, perhaps the council will consider delaying the planned construction until nearer to the end of the program and consider seeking further consultation with residents in the street?
Thank you. Mr Gumov.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mr Mayor, in view of the recent petition, the City will delay the planned construction of the footpath to allow further review of that footpath and for further consultation with the community.
Great to hear it. Thank you. So that brings a third question, which interested me because I was the one carrying out the petition or walking around the street asking residents. And during discussions with Montrose Way residents about the planned footpath, several expressed concerns that it will lead to increased street parking, which will reduce visibility and compromise the safety of children cycling or playing in the street, pedestrians crossing the road and drivers entering or exiting their vehicles. So will the council acknowledge that this is a legitimate concern and consider seeking independent consultation to assess its validity, specifically with regard to Montrose Way?
Look, the simple answer is yes. All concerns by residents are valid concerns, so they'll all be taken into consideration. But as Mr. Gilmore said, it will be put on hold. We'll do some more investigation, and it can certainly be withheld.
All right, and there'll be notification regarding that to the residents in Montrose Way?
Oh, definitely, yes.
All right,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you. Mike Masello? Just your name and suburb.
My name is Mike Masiello, and I'm from Trigg and a member of Bushnot Boardwalk. Let's fix the path instead. Bushnot Boardwalk is committed to creating a better, safer walking experience for all users of the South Trigg Beach Reserve shared path. We believe this can be achieved through sensible, cost-effective and environmentally sustainable strategies, and we are committed to assisting the city to implement these strategies. Bushnot Boardwalk is pleased to announce that it has been successful with the submission to Main Roads recently, aimed to address the inappropriate speed signage situation that currently exists along West Coast Highway adjacent to the South Trigg Reserve shared path. We have achieved the following changes: an extension of the 60km/h zone for West Coast Highway northbound traffic, effectively making the whole South Trigg Beach Reserve a shared path, a 60km zone. Previously it was a split 60-80 zone. And also we've had approved the installation of 2 60 speed signs for northbound traffic on West Coast Highway to reinforce the speed limit, as currently there's no signs throughout that whole stretch as you exit Scarborough going north. I've also been informed that the 80 zone will be changing to a 70 shortly, which I think people are aware of, which will now start after the north slip lane that the city has installed recently for Surfing WA. A city spokesman on Friday the 11th of October reported to WA Today that in 2021, the city asked Main Roads to install a crash barrier along West Coast Highway from Scarborough to Trigg and suggested a speed limit reduction from 80 to 60km/h. However, Main Roads denied this request. My question: what was the application method used by the city, and can the city please forward me a copy of this submission?
Thank you. I'm happy to respond to you in writing and provide that for you.
Thank you. I was saddened to hear of the Porter Street boardwalk situation and sympathise with the local residents in the area who were told to instead simply use the alternative access path. It sounds like stakeholders are reluctant to take ownership, given the significant cost to replace the boardwalk. Construction estimates were circa 1.2 to 1.5 million for roughly 100 square metres of bridge, very high level. Apologies if I get this wrong. Basic civil requirements, given the fact of its location. There was a proposed coastal boardwalk diagram doing the rounds this week. I saw some posters Mr. Murphy was carrying on Friday morning, and was interested to run some costing on the design that appeared on these posters, comparing it to the Porter Street concept. If the Porter Street was 1.2 to 1.5 for approximately 100 square metres, this equates to about 12 to 15,000 per square metre. The proposed coastal boardwalk on Mr. Murphy's sign looked to be approximately 750 linear
Sorry,
metres.
can I just clarify,
there.
just for the record, there certainly wasn't Mr. Murphy's sign.
Oh, sorry, I was saying the sign that he was carrying, there was a picture on the sign.
But let's be very clear, we're on public record now, and you're basically suggesting it's
I wasn't
you are suggesting it's a city officer carrying, and he owns the sign.
No,
he was removing illegal signage.
I agree,
Yes.
he was removing
Thank
the
you.
sign. He just held a sign, so I'm just talking about that. Okay, so if the Porter Street was 1.2 to 1.5 for approximately 100 square metres, equates to 12 to 15,000 per square metre. The proposed coastal boardwalk was 750 on this diagram that's been circulated to the public. So if you multiply this by 2.5, it's about 1,875 square metres. 1,875 square metres multiplied by the 12 to 15,000
Let's get to the
square
crux.
metre.
Can I have a
Getting there,
question from you, sir?
comes to 22.5 million to 31.8 million, using costs for basic materials that may not be fit for purpose in a harsher coastal environment. My question: if the city claims it doesn't have the funds to construct the Porter Street boardwalk, Where is it going to extract the funds from for the proposed coastal boardwalk that may cost over $20 million? Also considering the likelihood of massive cost blowouts given the highly inflated construction environment at present.
Thank you. And look, they're two separate items. And in simple, the boardwalk along the coast is still in very initial investigations. There's certainly no plans and no costings have been done, and there is certainly no funding avenue for those at the moment. We've been open with that. In terms of the Porter Street boardwalk, the city hasn't investigated that yet. It's in very early stages, obviously burnt down reasonably recently. It's a Water Corp asset. We'll work with those departments. It's got to go through a process, and we'll follow that through.
Last question. I understand an environmental impact assessment of the South Trigg Beach Reserve is underway with the successful contractor awarded the work through the city's tender and RFQ process. Can the city please make available to the ratepayers, public, the official RFQ documentation, including the detailed scope of works information, as the city's coastal boardwalk feasibility study webpage only lists what the environmental impact assessment will be considering, not the methodology or requirements of the environmental impact assessment.
Thank you, and we'll respond to you in writing with that one. Yep. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Harley Diamond. Thank you. Just your name and suburb, please.
Harley Diamond, Karrinyup. In an article in the recent Perth Now newspaper, you, Mr Mayor, were critical of the member of Careen for his alleged lack of understanding of coastal erosion planning. The question is, what is the Mayor and the City's understanding of State Coastal Planning Policy 2.6 and its own Coastal Hazard Risk Management and Adaptation Planning Report and its application to the coastal boardwalk proposed between Scarborough and Trigg Beach?
Thank you. We'll respond to you in writing with the full information with that. We're critical not so much of doing any work on the beach, as I thought was pretty clear in the publication. It was the fact that a local member chose to garnish electorate names and phone numbers in the form of a petition, and then chose not to present that petition, yet a year later go to the media and say the city's done nothing without approaching the city.
Mm-hmm. A second question on the same subject. The Coastal Hazard Risk Management and Adaptation Planning Report adopted by the City in 2023 identifies the sand dunes at South Trigg Beach Reserve as an erosion buffer and a coastal asset. The report states that its success criterion is to ensure the natural environment is protected and sustained in its current condition. How then does the allocation of $500,000 of ratepayers' money to a coastal boardwalk feasibility study for the construction of a boardwalk through this same coastal reserve support this policy?
We will find that out once the investigations report back, and it may well show that it doesn't.
Third question. The City's Coastal Hazard Risk Management and Adaptation Planning Report identifies erosion and inundation as the two primary coastal hazards on the City of Stirling coastline. This report states that vulnerability of coastal assets such as sand dunes is controlled by the distance between the shoreline and built assets. How does the City justify the expenditure of $500,000 to investigate the building of a coastal boardwalk through South Trigg Beach Reserve when its own report identifies this dune reserve as a no-build area where development is to be avoided?
And again, sir, the investigation will determine if that is the case. The Chair Map speaks to how to manage those assets. It doesn't say that you can't build assets or do any of that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Robin Murphy. Thank you, Ms Murphy. Just your name and suburb.
Good evening, Mr Mayor and councillors. My name is Robin Murphy. I'm the convener of the Friends of Trigg Beach and I live in Karrinyup. Just to comment on the last answer, the CharMap report actually does say that you should avoid buildings in undeveloped areas along the coastline, but perhaps I know it better than you do. Question 1.
Interpretation.
I called the city in February for information on the proposed councillors' workshop initiated by Councillor Papard in December 2023 regarding a boardwalk between Scarborough and Trigg Beach. I asked if the Friends of Trigg Beach could brief the councillors at the workshop, but I was told that third parties could not attend and that it was not a decision-making forum. After writing to the CEO about the lack of transparency in the allocation of $500,000 for a coastal boardwalk feasibility study, I was advised that the process to allocate this money involved the councillors' visioning workshop in March, the same workshop, as part of the budget process. This was a direct contradiction to the advice given to me. My question is, what was the process that resulted in a decision to allocate $500,000 to a coastal boardwalk feasibility study at the councillors' workshop in March 2024?
Thank you, Ms Murphy. It was a budget process.
Can I receive an answer to that question in writing, please, Mr Mayor?
Yes, certainly.
Question 2, as a follow-up, my second question is, how was the amount of $500,000, $500,000, allocated to a coastal boardwalk feasibility study arrived at?
Thank you. And we can respond to you in writing. Some of it would be estimates, and it may well not all be spent.
I'd appreciate that in writing. I
Yes.
think transparency when we're looking at expenditure of
No,
that amount of
happy
money
to respond to you in writing.
is absolutely critical. Question 3, the city has engaged a consultant to carry out another environmental study, I repeat, another environmental study on a coastal boardwalk between Scarborough and Trigg Beach, the outcome of which will be presented to a councillors' briefing on the 28th of October. It is obvious that no thorough environmental study of this 13.37 hectare Quindalup coastal dune system, Bush Forever Reserve, could possibly be conducted in this time frame. My question is, who is conducting the environmental study, how were they selected, and how much is it costing the ratepayers of the City of Stirling?
Thank you for that. And look, we're happy to provide it in writing, so you've got it as full transparency. It was through the Walga procurement panel or tendering panel. That will be made public. Once this study is done, we're happy to let you know who the person doing the study is, the terms of reference, what the outcome was.
We'd prefer to know that those questions, how were they selected and how much is it costing the ratepayers before the outcome?
Yeah, sure. So I'm sure we can respond to you in writing with that.
Thank you.
Roland Hadley. Just your name and suburb, please.
Good evening, Roland Hadley, Woodlands. Question 1. With domestic violence likely to increase with the increase in population, has the city considered building an additional women's refuge centre? Particularly when we see ratepayers' money being spent on city boundary markers costing about $400,000, illuminating a Scarborough clock tower for $90,000, $500,000 on an environmental study, third time of asking, and $350,000 approximately on Christmas lights, a total of $1,340,000 spent. The question is, can you please consider this proposal for additional facility?
Thank you. It's already been done, Mr. Hadley.
Has it really?
Yes.
Has it been reported? I couldn't see anything.
Yeah, there was a lot of publicity around it. It was a significant state government contribution for a build.
Oh, good. Thank you.
We don't look. The reality of domestic violence, it's an awful thing that we deal with, and the city has a role to play in that. But it is one of those things that it's not overly publicised in terms because of obviously the location of those facilities and what they do. So,
Okay.
but I can assure you, there's certainly a significant facility currently underway.
It's very rewarding. Thank you. Question 2. Regarding the $350,000 for Christmas lights, are these lights operating for 1 month only? How much are ratepayers paying for electricity? what budget costings have been made for future maintenance and servicing? Can you please provide the details?
Yes, certainly can provide those details in writing for you.
Thank you. Question 3. We believe the city's strategic advisor, Mr. Stuart Jardine, and yourself, Mr. Mayor, were recently overseas. Were any of these trips on the City of Stirling's official business? If so, please advise full, comprehensive details.
No, they were not.
Thank you. Cheers.
I did visit some councils overseas, but certainly you didn't pay for it, Mr. Hadley. I confirm that. Simon Wheeler.
G'day, Simon Wheeler, Scarborough. Good evening, councillors, staff and members of the gallery. Mayor, item 12.1 CF2, in the policy under section 4.5, requests that consultation requirements for amended development applications for either minor works or extension of time may be waived at the discretion of the city where the planning framework relevant to the site has not changed. And that the amendment will not result in any off-site impacts. I attempted, perhaps unsuccessfully, to illustrate in committee an example of an amendment reducing an approved development from 4 to 3 stories, actually resulting in a development higher above natural ground level than the original approval, a cloud that darkened what might otherwise have been perceived prima facie as a silver lining. And whilst Ms Shears is correct in stating that the city's processes have since improved, and I'll concede the senior planning staff have indeed sharpened their game, council should note that even time extensions can sow the seeds of uncertainty and vexation amongst adjacent property owners, as I think we're actually hearing tonight. And in the present economic climate, we see approvals stagnating, unbuilt projects littering the landscape, and I don't want to mention Three Oceans, but look, I just did. This policy, dressed in the language of reasonableness, may well hide more perilous outcomes, and I would call upon councillors to exercise not mere acceptance, but the higher faculty of, if not sceptical, at least critical thinking. And the question is, if an amendment is not re-advertised under this policy, is it still possible under the prevailing planning framework to allow for the repolling of those who took the time to make submissions in initial consultations? And is this not prudent, given they probably have far more intimate knowledge of potential repercussions and pitfalls of alleged minor amendments?
Thank you. Ms Hughes.
Through you, Mr Mayor, some additional information was provided to councillors following your question at committee last week. So that item obviously is on the agenda for consideration tonight. In response to your question, we have undertaken that previously in terms of where an item may not have been afforded an official sort of public notification period. We have gone back out to those who have taken the time to submit, and albeit it might have only been for a shorter period, but we've sought their feedback on that amendment.
Thank you. As onto trees, as noted at committee, the city tree policy, which is up tonight. As noted at committee, my only allergy, an earlier report regarding the city's 10-year study of canopy loss resulted in either a bit of evidence-based deductive brilliance or perhaps a no-shit Sherlock realisation that it appears that the cornerstone of fighting tree loss in Stirling is probably not to chop them down in the first place. As noted at committee, my only allergy is the sort of thinking that would hack away at our urban canopy for want of clear sinuses and swimming pools. Or the logical conclusion that we must then uproot every blade of grass, every flowering shrub, every vestige of greenery, all of which contribute in no small measure to the pollen count. Do we next propose the prohibition of cold air? Because that also is an asthma trigger. Should we then demolish the very winds, the delivery system of the pollen apocalypse? And what about cars? Councillors, are there any here that will stand and propose a moratorium on traffic because a citizen's health might be bettered by its absence? My question is to councillors, is council aware that shortfalls in detail aside, the excellent city trees policy before you tonight may, if unmolested, actually have a positive effect on canopy, and that trees in general provide exponentially far more good than harm to public health.
I didn't know where you were going there for a while, Mr. Wheeler.
Nor did I don't think, by the sound of it.
So, look, certainly the committee recommendation would suggest they do, but it's on the agenda this evening and you'll see what they decide to do.
Mayor Owen, as part of responsible cat ownership, I created a survey for responsible cat ownership and the West Australian Feral Cat Working Group, which polled 139 local governments on cat containment measures. Now, that survey was GDPR compliant, which means that if the City of Stirling replied to that survey online, that they could be sure that only they could access that survey, and only once. But there's now, I'm not sure now. Now I'm not sure if Mr. Murphy was actually carrying City of Stirling signs or somebody else's signs, but there was a survey on there issued by the Trigg Scarborough Coastal Boardwalk Group, and is council aware that the survey may be skewed for the following reasons? The survey did not appear to validate the email addresses entered, meaning it could have been completed an infinite number of times by each participant, or indeed by AI. That a Qualtronics Curtin account, which it was set on, is readily available for uni students at Curtin and provides no validation or integrity of the survey. That although a proposed boardwalk pathway is presented in the survey, no costing or environmental impact information was provided. That Facebook comments suggest a large proportion of the public do not want to complete the survey due to the perceived requirement to give a real email address, and as such cannot represent a broad sample of the community, and that the survey was only promoted on selected coastal Facebook pages and at Trigg itself, but before they were taken away by Mr. Murphy, and therefore the large proportion of ratepayers that don't use Facebook were underrepresented. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you. And look, you make your point. The short answer is no. They have no idea about any of that because it's not our survey. But it's...
All I can ask is that when the survey does come to council, that you waste no time in reading it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And look, I understand that it's an opposing position, but as I'll always say, the council always takes all that background stuff into consideration, whether you've got Facebook support, whether you've got 660 on a petition, whether you've only got 3 on a petition. The council will take all of that into consideration and obviously do its own investigation or consultation engagement and make its own decision. And it'll take all that into consideration. It's not our survey.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trevor Bastow.
Hi everyone, Trevor Bastow, Nolmurra, and I'm here about the new footpath in Montrose Way and not wanting it. My fellow resident explained some of the details quite well, so I'll make it very short. The Montrose Way is a way that goes nowhere. If you're either on it because you live there or you're lost or doing something awkward. Yeah, and I guess in considering future alternatives, I guess maybe doing away with the footpath and maybe just lowering the speed limit on the Montrose Way would be a good thing, because if you're going over 30 kilometres per hour, you change your gears too fast. Anyway, if you could consider lowering the speed limit up maybe rather than a footpath, that'd be really good. Thank you.
Thank you. And look, the simple answer to that again is, as you've heard tonight, residents want footpaths, residents don't want footpaths. The city's role, it has got a strategic footpath policy. The reality is if 20 people on the street didn't want it and 2 wanted it, but the 2 that wanted it needed it because they need right of access to be able to get to their bus stops, all those things come into consideration. But as you've heard the officers, they'll go back to the community, they'll have a chat to you, it'll be delayed and we'll do some further work on that.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your time and patience.
Thank you. Damien Kelly. Thank you. Your name and suburb?
Damien Kelly, Scarborough. My question is in relation to the Lake Gwelup Boardwalk. What reasons has the Water Corporation given for not rectifying the severe damage to its own asset out of its own sort of asset maintenance or insurance program? That's the first question.
Let me get an answer. Mr.
Okay.
Guillemot, have we got a reason?
Through the chair, the reason hasn't been specific other than that they, and the previous bridge was deteriorating to a condition that it needed reconstruction. That was prior to the fire occurring, and then after the fire occurred, it was just an internal decision made by Water Corp. But other than that statement to say that they were no longer progressing reconstruction, that's all that we've been provided, unfortunately.
So just to clarify, they've come back and actually said, the Water Corp has said, we are not progressing this. Is that a fair
Mr. Guillemot, can you just clarify that?
Through the chair, yes, that is correct. They've offered, in lieu of the boardwalk, they've offered to perhaps look at alternative options and upgrade the paths within Lake Gwelup Reserve. But actual reconstruction of the boardwalk is something that they've said they're not looking to progress at this stage.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly?
Thank you. And the second question relates to the, I guess, advocacy and pressure around the boardwalk. I commend Rodney King here for putting together the petition with 660 signatures, and to Councillor Perkov for tabling it. I'm concerned about the lack of pressure being put on to the Water Corporation so far to actually fix its own asset, it really. Is the council aware of any pressure, or has there been any pressure applied either from council or within state government from local members, for example, to actually get the Water Corporation to fix its asset? And it's admirable that it's happening from a grassroots, and that the council is kind of indirectly or about to get involved itself, but I'm just concerned that it shouldn't need to. So thank you.
Yeah, and look, thanks for your question. The only thing I'm aware of, and in actual fact, it did make the radio. I was talking to Gary Edstead about something else, and he actually inquired because he was aware of the petition that was being run. My understanding is there have been discussions between the state member and Water Corp. I wasn't aware that the Water Corp had got to that stage that they'd made some comments around that. So, you know, I'm unaware. That would have to be directed to the state government.
Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. Kieran Kelly. No relation?
No relation. Had to do a DNA. So, Damien, just in case. Kieran Kelly, Scarborough. And I just got to get a bit technical here with the phone. Look, at last March in 2024 at the AGM/EGM, I put forward a motion which read, in the interest of openness and transparency, the city require all councillors to make an annual declaration of all membership interests and positions in any political party, corporation, trade union, professional or business association, or community and sporting organisation. Further, all such annual declarations should be published online and be available to ratepayers and updated as required. That was seconded and passed and carried, as it said in here. To date, I haven't received any correspondence from council regarding this motion. Is this because council are still to discuss it, or is it a matter that they don't want to discuss it? So can you confirm to the ratepayers that the motion has been considered? If so, what is your response? And if the motion is yet to be considered by council, when will it be considered and when will we get a response?
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Blanchard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the question, Mr. Kelly. The Electors General Meeting motions have been considered by council. I'm sorry that we haven't written to you to confirm what has happened with your motion, and we will do that after today's meeting.
Right. Second one. As the council are probably aware, polyvagus shot hole borer is spreading through the suburbs of Perth Can the council inform the ratepayers how many, if any, trees have been removed, and what actions are they taking to try to prevent this spread? And are they looking at any other alternatives besides tree removal?
Thank you for that question. We'll respond to you in writing because it is growing by the day and there's significant changes with it.
Very significant, and it's a major problem for not just, it's a major problem for all of us.
Yes.
My third question is to do with the Feels Like Scarborough petition or consultation. While filling out this survey, I was stopped halfway through and locked out due to the survey already having enough responses from people in my demographic. I take this as being male and over 35. Has the council had any other inquiries of why they were locked out of the survey?
Look, I wasn't aware of it. We'll get you a response in writing.
Yeah, it was just as I was halfway through it, ready to tick all the boxes, and no, don't need any more. Thank you.
No. I was keen on your demographic, Mr. Kemp. Now, that's all I've got on my list. Is there any other questions this evening? Yeah, I thought there might be a couple. Yes, Ms. Jack, if you'd like to start.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors, staff.
Good evening. And just start with your name and
Yeah,
for the record.
Leisha Jack, Ms. Leisha Jack. I'm actually married, not Miss. It sounds like Miss when you say that. Sorry. Okay. There's so many questions I have about the tree policy. I mean, there's just hundreds. So I was just going to ask.
Let's start with three, though.
I'm going to start with the broad questions, but Mr. Mayor, I'm sure you would agree that it is important to people who live and work in the City of Stirling to know what your priorities are as Mayor and how knowledgeable you are about important public health issues that affect them. So if you could answer this question, please, in your own words. State and local governments over East have introduced or are in the process of introducing tree protection laws for privately owned land. Can you please tell us what you think their primary reason for doing this is, this big move to have trees protected over East?
Look, you would have to direct that to those people. I
want to know your
Please let me
opinion.
answer, Ms. Jack.
Okay.
The council over East, you would have to ask them what their reason for doing that is. I would assume the reason for doing it is to protect trees on private property.
Why?
I think that would be obvious to save trees from being cut
Doesn't know. Thank you.
down.
It is.
Ms. Jack, if you
Can you
want to...
please?
No,
It's a
you
simple
can-
question, Mr.
and you
Mayor.
got a simple answer. I don't know what you're looking for. It's not. I don't know if you're
Okay,
trying
sorry,
to
let
trap
me rephrase that. What do you think the primary reason for state and local governments introducing...
And I just said it, to save the tree and the private property. It can't be any simpler than that, Ms. Jack. Your second question, please.
Doesn't know. Wow. Okay. It is common knowledge that heat can get dangerous in summer. But on a few occasions now, I have alerted you and councillors to the fact that it is in fact significantly more dangerous than most people realise because heat-related deaths are drastically underreported in Australia. This is because there are no requirements for doctors to record heat as a causal factor in a person's death on death certificates in Australia, unlike other countries. Mr. Mayor, do you acknowledge the fact that heat-related deaths could be 50 times worse than the Bureau of Statistics in Australia are stating? And given that I've alerted you to this a few times already, have you bothered to look into this further?
You can put a no next to that one too, Ms. Jack.
Yeah, I know. I was expecting that. I just needed confirmation. Thanks.
That's right.
Given that Perth gets extremely hot in summer and that many disadvantaged City of Stirling residents live in hot, treeless streets, in houses that don't have air conditioning, or they can't afford electricity to run them, the air conditioners, what measures are you and the city looking at to protect these residents during heat waves and extreme heat events? Are you setting up cool spaces like other LGs, local governments, sorry, in Australia and around the world?
I'm not aware of those other cool spaces that are being set up around the world, and I'm not sure what your expectation is through that question. The city certainly has its tree policy on the agenda
Okay, you
this
don't
evening.
know what a cool space is. That's fine, Mr Mayor, thank you.
I would,
Good evening.
I
No.
would suggest Karrinyup Shopping Centre would be a good start, Ms Jack. Are there any other questions this evening?
They're not open at night.
Yes. Just your name and suburb to start, please.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors and council officers. It's Lisa from South Trigg. I'm wondering if you can please help me understand the City of Stirling's public relations campaign in regard to the proposed boardwalk, because I'm a bit totally confused as to who's in the driver's seat. I'm guessing you've all seen the WA Today story. What the story highlighted for me was total confusion about who was doing what and a disregard for accountability and transparency. Can you explain to me, does the council sanction and approve the surveys, pamphlets and information sheets being distributed in favour of the boardwalk?
No.
Right. So when I asked a question at the last council meeting if you had seen any diagrams and plans about the boardwalk, you answered quite categorically to me that you had not. Last Friday, posters were plastered along the current pathway calling for people to have their say on the boardwalk and showed a full map highlighting where exactly the proposed boardwalk would slice through the fragile dune system. You said at the last council meeting that no decision had been made on the boardwalk, and yet there was another survey with a map clearly spelling out the location. Why is that?
You would have to ask the person who put that map up. I didn't even see the sign, to be honest.
That's okay, I've got a copy if you want. Mr Mayor, if you and the council are not sanctioning all this information and the surveys, then is this council proposing to use these surveys as a basis for proceeding and investing ratepayers' money?
No, certainly not. As I think we've made that clear. We can't
That's
control.
good, I'm glad to hear that, that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
But
Unreal.
we
I'm
obviously-
happy lady.
We can't control how the community chooses to get their point across.
Good. And I understand that the council has hired a new public relations specialist to push the boardwalk agenda. I was just wondering, is this salary of this person coming out of the $500,000 or is this an additional cost?
I don't know what you're referring to. I'm sorry.
So we haven't got a specialist new public relations lady to help us?
Not
to help
that-
you push the boardwalk?
Not that I'm aware of, but...
It's on your website, yep.
Yeah, Mr Quirk, maybe I'm not aware of something.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'm happy to answer that question. Yes, it's not a public relations specialist, it's a community engagement officer. Yes, we knew that community engagement was going to be an integral part of the boardwalk project.
Yep.
And so part of that $500,000 was to engage someone to undertake that community engagement, which is what you're referring to.
So would it be extra or is it still the same then?
I would be involved in that.
Okay, cheers.
Apologies, I wasn't aware.
That's okay. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Now, hopefully that's time for us to get on with the rest of the meeting. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We'll move on to item 8, application for leave of absence. Councillors, are there any applications for leave of absence this evening? No indication. Then I'll go on to 9, confirmation of minutes. Can I have a mover and a seconder to accept the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the 17th of September? Moved Deputy Mayor Migdal, seconded Councillor Kristovich. Can I have a show of hands just to accept those minutes of that meeting? Councillors? Councillor Dudek? Minutes? Thank you. That's unanimous. Announcements by the presiding member. I will start with a short one and then I'll pass on to someone else. I'd like to just acknowledge the passing of former town clerk, these days we call them CEOs, Mr Ralph Farden, OAM. It's with sadness that I advise the passing of former City of Stirling town clerk, Mr Ralph Farden, OAM. Ralph was a passionate advocate for local government. Using a collaborative approach, he displayed good governance and outstanding leadership. Ralph was recognised for his exceptional public service and community involvement when he received the Medal of the Order of Australia Award in the Australian Day Honours List in 2007. Ralph enjoyed an extensive career spanning several decades across both regional and metropolitan local governments. He served as a town clerk of the City of Stirling from 1986 to 1991. Ralph was a pillar of the community and will be greatly missed by all who knew him. The City sends its heartfelt condolences to Ralph's family. I'd now like to ask Councillor Perkov, you have an announcement?
I certainly do. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, this past week we had the 2024 GWM BMX Racing National Championships right here in the City of Stirling at Westside BMX in Balcatta. On Thursday, the 10th of October, I attended the opening day of the 2024 GWM BMX Racing National Championships held at Westside. That was down at Scarborough. That was a media event. Subsequently, some of us attended on the Friday, Saturday, and even the Sunday. The GWM BMX Racing National Championships is Australia's biggest BMX event, and the first time the National Championships had been held in the City of Stirling with riders participating from all over Australia, and we actually had several world champions that were part of the racing as well. The championships were delivered by Oz Cycling, with the city supporting the event through $70,000 of sponsorship and another $17,000 value in kind, for a total package of $87,000. I'd like to acknowledge the team at Westside BMX for all the hard work they put into hosting such a big event, and especially the volunteers who donated so much of their time to ensure the event was a great success. It was actually televised every day on SBS On Demand. And with your indulgence, Mr Mayor, if I can just mention that during a light-hearted moment while they were introducing some of us councillors on Saturday night, thousands of people heard us referred to as the City of Stirling Senators. We felt quite chuffed about that. So it is a pleasure to present to Council the gift we received at the BMX Racing National Championships, which is a BMX number plate personally signed and presented by the 2024 Olympic gold medalist, Saya Sakakibara. There it is, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, well done.
She was an fantastic champion, and what a great world-class event it was as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll go on to item 11, unresolved business from previous meetings. I have nil for that, and we'll now move on to item 12, which is the reports. We'll deal with the items from the Planning Development Committee. We do have to pull 12.1 PCS1 out, just for disclosure. There's no other items that need to be pulled out from P&D. Councillors, do you wish to pull any items out? Councillor Giudice?
Yes, 12.1 CF2, please.
Proposed modifications. Thank you. And any others? Councillor Dudek?
Yeah, 12.1 PE1.
PE1, the city trees. Thanks, Councillor. Any other indication? If not, we'll start with that one. So we'll go to 12.1 PE1, the city trees policy. As Chair of the Committee, Councillor Proud.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'll move the committee recommendation on page 10.
Thank you. And is there a seconder? Councillor Lagan. Thank you. Is there anyone opposed? Councillor Dudek. Councillor Proud. Your motion. Would you like to speak? Councillor Dudek's opposed. You don't have to speak. You can reserve. No, I'll reserve. Yep. Councillor Lagan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm seconding this, given that there's been a number of occasions on which the elected members and officers have worked on the policy. There's been a lot of progress. There's been a lot of movement towards requirements or sections that the elected members wanted modified. And I think it shows that the city is taking great steps to ensure that it not only is protecting its own trees, but is protecting its reputation for protection of canopy in the city itself. So happy with the policy and happy to see the progress. I expect to see some more.
Thank you. Councillor Dudek.
Thank you. And I echo Councillor Lagan's comments. I think we have discussed this and the policy has improved. I'll just briefly explain my reasons for voting against. I don't wish to relitigate the whole argument. We did debate for about 2 hours at committee on this and several times as well. Just briefly, I received a call today from an elderly lady around 2:30 p.m. who'd slipped and fell on some debris falling from a tree from her neighbour's property. Obviously, this isn't something that the policy would cover. I just struggle to think that if it were a city tree that was causing that debris and she were to slip, that the initial response would be that we don't prune trees from falling debris. And just for that reason, I'm going to vote against it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to discuss this? Councillor Hatton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to say that I do commend the new policy. I think we had to review it for after 10 years. We were workshopped, I think, in August on the policy. I did have quite a lot of concerns about old growth trees that were once small trees, and over 30 or 40 years they had grown to massive trees adjacent to properties of people with families, and they were worried about tree branch drop for various reasons and impacting on their houses. And still that, even though I'm very happy that we have a tree panel that has assured us that they'll do a case-by-case study or investigation and appraisal of trees that could possibly be dangerous branches hanging over adjacent properties. That's really good, and we'll see how that tree panel goes for the 12 to 18 months. So that's one pleasing aspect that might address safety of old growth trees. I'm talking about trees that were once small, become medium growth, and then they become massive trees by houses. So these residents don't dislike trees, and they're not talking about removing them, they're just talking about, hey, it's got so big, can we please do something about it? So hopefully the case-by-case study with the tree panel will help out. I'm still, and thank you too, in the policy for addressing one of my concerns, and that is with our harsh climate change and all the things we've grown up with and getting worse with our very hot climate. I'm talking about street trees being properly under-pruned so that we can play under them, so we can recreate under them, so people can stop in the harsh middle of the day summer and stand under a tree to get some relief, and also for cars to park off streets under shade. Now, I've seen quite often over years, a decade plus, the olive trees have been planted in the city of Stirling, and they don't provide that undergrowth unless we...
Councillor, I don't often do this, but I'm not even sure if you're debating for or against.
Okay.
And you're just telling stories. Like,
all right,
can we
so
I'll
keep it succinct now. There's things that have been improved. Very happy. I think we've done well, but I'm still worried about debris and leaf drop that impacts on residents. I hope that we can work on that in the future. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Reid.
Thank you. My initial question is, can this policy be reviewed at any time, either through motion or through
Yes.
motion? Or
Yeah,
whatever?
it's up to council if they want to review a policy.
Thank you. Secondly, I just want to know why we would have two different panels for both this and the tree register. Why aren't they the same? Because that would actually make it more consistent in the opinions.
I thought they were the same, councillor.
No, they're not. The people that make up the panels are different.
Oh, the second. Ms. Shears?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you're correct, councillor. There is, for the significant tree register item, there is a separate panel, but in all likelihood, they could be the same people.
Thank you. In the panel for the significant trees, it actually has a planning officer. I would like that to be included into this one, because I think when we have planning issues, and I am cognizant of the fact that a lot of people commented about on page 12, the tree potentially obscures, the tree extends. A lot of this actually comes back to DAPS, if you like, because if we've got an existing tree and then the city, well, actually through DAPS, approves a house at the rear, there's no consideration taken for a tree getting bigger, and we actually have a...
So I'll get a response on that. My understanding was it probably would be a planning officer.
Through the chair, the third position identified is either another manager or service lead, and that person can absolutely either be the manager of planning or a service lead within the planning team.
Councillor Reid?
If that's the case, then that would be an amendment. I'm happy to actually say it as an amendment.
I don't think the panel actually forms part of the motion. I think that can be changed.
Well, all through the actual policy, it refers to the panel.
Yeah, but
So
I'll just get clarification from Mr. Johnson. But I don't know if the names on the panel can be changed and the the positions can. So I think that can be taken under notice.
Yes,
Mr. Johnson.
correct, Mr. Mayor. We haven't nominated exactly who will be on that panel, so we'll need some flexibility depending on who the availability of officers are at the time.
Yep. So it doesn't need an amendment, but certainly happy to take that on board and agree totally with you. Planning officer would be good.
Well, page 19 and page 13, and if you like, going to pages 72, 56, there's quite a few references through it about who's on the panel.
But it says city senior officer, so that can easily be a planning officer. So there's.
So for consistency, why I'm saying a planning officer is that there was an issue in Wembley Downs where a house was built behind.
Yeah, but I'm saying your point is noted. The manager of both areas have agreed. There's no opposition to what you suggested.
So, well, my point is whether or not it really needs to be changed. But anyway, we'll see how that goes. The other thing is with regard to a comment made by Councillor Dudak with the insurance. Does the city then take liability with the trees, the increase in trees? And I do recall a situation in North Beach recently where a lady was sitting in a car when the street tree actually branches fell on her.
Thanks. And again, let's not do stories tonight. The city is insured. And the insurer will determine if there's liability or not. LGIS.
Okay, well, we need to actually have that written.
It is. It's in a policy that it happens all the time. If something happens from either a city asset or a tree falling down, someone will either claim their physical property or their personal property, whatever it is, through LGIS. They'll do it through their own insurance or go through LGIS.
Well, they can't go through their own insurance because the verge is not considered their property, which is half the issue. But anyway, well, I'll send those up to. I've discussed that with Mr. Murphy prior, so I'll just send everybody to Mr. Murphy from now on. That's okay.
I'd send them to their insurer.
Well,
but keep
their
going.
insurer has said no.
Let's move on. We've got a few who want to talk on this.
With regard to page 19, it's in the control of the trees. Has the authorisation of the delegate officer for the planting, pruning and management. So we're still going back to one person deciding whether or not they have trees or not. And I did think that we also should have a definition in here of city and council, because council seems.
So just to be clear, when it talks about a delegated officer, the delegated officer starts with Mr. Murphy and he decides if it goes to Mr. Hunter. But then tree officers would all make their own decisions as a normal business as usual. If it got escalated, it would go up the line.
But it doesn't.
And if it needed to be resolved, it would go through the tree panel.
But it doesn't say that on page 19. It says is the authorised as the delegated officer. The person, only one person is deciding, which is the issue we've sort of got at the moment, which people.
But I think that's not the intent. When you have a delegated officer, it's like the delegated officer for a lot of things in the organisation is the CEO. It doesn't mean he enacts them. His officers would enact those. He's responsible for that delegation.
Okay, well, the way it's read and the way it was written and the way it's been implemented is some of the issues why we've tried to get this policy up and running. The other thing is with regard to the drains. I've spoken about it before. We're sending, and I will put a separate motion up on this because it's not captured here enough in which to keep the trees alive.
So again, though, if it's something to do with trees that isn't related to the actual tree policy, we're not going to solve that tonight. If you've got something in the tree policy you want amended regarding that.
I've suggested the things. The other thing in here, it says that the trees are watered regularly for 2 years. And we have got it, Councillor Ollo has it in writing as a question on notice, every 2 weeks. And it's in the policy. But we know that these trees aren't watered regularly like that. So it's in the policy, it's not being done, but it's where are we going with that one when the trees die?
But again, we're not going to solve that with the tree policy because it's already in there. So if it's a problem with how it's enacted, we can take that offline and talk to the officers about that.
Okay.
Have I got any more? I've got Councillor Christovich and Councillor Olo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I think it's, from my perspective, very important to support this policy. I think it's a very robust policy. We've discussed it at great length. We know how we need to send a strong message to the community that we care about trees, and it's important to save trees at every opportunity and not just chop them down or chop branches down just because a honky nut has fallen onto a footpath or a leaf has fallen into a gutter. And I think the policy is very clear in that respect. And I think, you know, they're not good reasons to be chopping down branches or trees. And this policy is very clear that in the reasons that you do or don't look at chopping branches or trees down, and it does offer the opportunity for a case-by-case exceptional circumstance situation. And there is the process, obviously, of the committee tree panel that goes through. And as we know as well, obviously you've got the council process as well, where you can bring motions to council to look at trees that are causing issues. And, you know, we obviously discuss those, and we're very careful about making sure that trees and branches are removed for the right reasons, and that, you know, we know that our canopy is reducing. We know that trees are, you know, well, especially now with the Port Bora, they're disappearing at a faster rate. So we need to do as much as we can to protect every single tree in the city of Stirling, and we need to be looking for reasons to save trees, not trying to find excuses to get rid of them. And the reasons to get rid of them need to be exceptional, and it needs to be case by case. And I think it's very important, and I think you know, we've done a great job up to this point, and I think it's critical that good policies that cover every single scenario possible should be supported, and we should be sending that message to the community to say, we are here, we are listening, you know, we will do things if they need to be done to make your property safer, but at the same time, you know, we're not going to be silly about it and just get rid of trees for the sake of getting rid of them. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Olo.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In this policy, I noticed they're talking about taking out the tree causes allergies and health problems. I do not feel that that should be taken out, because there are people, I know it was addressed tonight by a resident, there are people that do suffer with allergies which affect them from hay fever to asthma. They end up in hospitals. I think the council really needs to be looking at what trees we're planting. I'm not saying cut down the trees because you're having a hay fever attack or something like that. What I'm saying is, Australia is a big country. We've been here for many years. We should be looking at different, not just the Australian bush, but other tree species. And not only, yes, we need the canopy for the summer, for the heat, but we do need trees that lose their leaves through the winter, so we've got the heat coming into the house. The percentage of people die more from the cold than the heat, and I think we really, really need to be looking at this whole structure of the health and what species of trees we're planting. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree. We should bring back box trees, personally. Councillor Perkoff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, we're heading in the right direction here. I like this policy. I'm going to support this policy as is. The key words for me were case by case and exceptional circumstances. I know Councillor Hatton and myself, we've dealt with this for quite a while. I was a little bit aghast, some weeks back when we had a workshop, and may have been an officer, may have been someone else that said, oh, look, what are the chances of these branches of some of these trees dropping? 1 in a million or so, something ridiculous. As this debate started, the discussion this evening, I showed my colleagues on either side what can actually happen with these trees from our own property in Wanneroo. It's happened now twice in 8 years. It's horrific. You cannot say it's 1 in a million. You cannot say it ain't going to happen. It just, there is no signal to tell you that it's going to happen. Absolutely stoked about this. Hopefully we can go forward and actually make some significant case-by-case changes if need be.
Thank you. Is there any other speakers? Deputy Mayor.
I wasn't going to talk to this item, but I will talk to this item just to say well done to the officers. I feel that a great deal of work has gone into this policy review. I, too, along with Councillor Dudek, who expressed his concern, and I know Councillor Hatton also did, express concern with regards to a panel making decisions based on what we could potentially see as being dangerous to residents. I myself have had several incidents which I am happy to report have been resolved to the benefit of residents with regards to tree droppings causing an unsafe scenario. I feel hesitant in so much as with a panel, I do not know if that is going to add further bureaucratic red tape to the scenario, or if there is still going to be the ability to remedy a possibly dangerous scenario in a timely manner. I don't know the answer, but I'd love comment on that.
Yeah, and all I can do is say that my comment, my discussions with officers in highlighting some of the concerns of council, the response has been the pure intent of that panel is not to add bureaucratic red tape. It is certainly to add that human empathy point and common sense sort of approach.
Again, I don't know what the process will look like. Is it going to blow out by weeks? Is it going to be a panel that meets once a month? Is it going to be bi-monthly, quarterly?
I think, as it says in the policy, the intent is it's case by case. I think, as officers said, the idea of the panel is an opportunity to try to understand the concerns of council and report back to you. So I think the intent would be, if they were using that panel for any decisions like this, it would be reported back to council, because you'd be keen to see how it's operating and how it's working to those particular councillors who've raised it.
So again, other than the fact that I can see the scenario taking perhaps longer to reach resolution, I will be an optimist in this scenario, and I believe that we will achieve highest and best outcomes, and if we don't, then we will pull the policy out and reassess it. I do take note of some of the comments that were made earlier in terms of growing our canopy, and for the city, I'm a strong believer that the city should carry the bag, in a sense that we should look to having city-owned land at 20% plus canopy before we start looking anywhere else to put that on private residents and private landowners. That's how I personally feel. But in this policy, I think that it balances a couple of really important things. Number one is the state government rolling out water restrictions. So now that we have water restrictions, they certainly do challenge our ability to grow canopy. So we have to be mindful of that. We've got the short hole borer, and we've also got overhead power lines. Just imagine, if you will, for one moment, if all of the metro area in Stirling was underground power, how easily we would grow out our canopy overnight. So that's another thing to consider. But on that note, in this instance, I will support this policy tonight, noting that we are a different climate to many other capital cities. It's not as easy for us to grow canopy as it is in Sydney and Melbourne. We don't have that tropical edge, but I'm comfortable with supporting this for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I'll go back to Councillor Proud to close debate.
Thanks, Chair. Pretty much a repeat of last Tuesday, which was brilliant. We had really good debate there and ironed out a few things. The most important thing that came out of that, and has been mentioned at least 3 times tonight, twice by Councillor Perkov, the main thing here is everything is covered, even things we haven't even thought of, because you've got case-by-case investigation for exceptional circumstances, and there can always be exceptions, but by and large, we were able to cover absolutely everything. There's been a heap of work done by officers and our parks team. Thank you all so much. Huge, and you've had to put up with lots of questions and arguments from councillors, and that's our job, so hey, we take that proudly. There's been a huge amount of workshops on every different element of trees, whether it's significant trees in public open space, verge trees, all that sort of thing. We have covered that to death over the last couple of years. I think we've got to a really good outcome here, where there's still we're still able to go back when there's a no answer or there's an exceptional circumstance. We can certainly cover off on it and have it re-looked at. What hasn't been mentioned, and I'm hopeful that it's known, should the manager or an acting manager of Parks and Environment actually take on a complaint and decide on something that's then escalated to the tree panel, that manager, that officer delegate would not be on it. They would bring in another senior delegate. So that's important to know, that there's that openness and clearness of distance. So thanks all. I'm guessing we're going to support this. I'm very pleased. Thank you.
We'll find out. Thank you, Councillor. That closes debate. I will put item 12.1 PE1 to the vote. If you can go to your votes, please. Thank you, councillors. That motion is carried with Councillor Dudek voting against it, all other councillors voting for it. We will now move on to item 12.2 CF2. It's been pulled out by Councillor Giudice. Councillor. Councillor Proud as chair of the committee.
Thanks. Happy to move the committee recommendation. This was endorsed unanimously on page 90.
Thank you. Councillor Giudice, did you want to add something as a seconder?
Yeah, I would like to second it, but would like to also offer the alternative recommendation being added.
Is that?
Happy to support.
Yeah. So it just becomes a substantive. The mover's happy to accept that slight amendment that was part of that memo that councillors all received. It doesn't change the intent, it just clarifies when that will be enacted. So happy to have that. So we've got still moved by Councillor Proud, seconded by Councillor Giudice. Is anyone opposed to that? If Councillor Ree, you're opposed? Yeah, but I just want to know if you're opposed, you want to debate against it, or you've just got a clarification question? We'll start with the question then. There's no one.
Just checking that this notice of motion, was that the notice of motion that I made? And if so, what was the, if not, what was the exact wording? Because on page 91, I had raised it, but it doesn't actually say the actual motion, which normally it does, and it normally says who. So it doesn't say that there. So, and I couldn't find it because I don't know what happens with it.
I think this has come. Yeah, I don't think this is part of a motion, but yep, no. I'm unable to answer that, councillor. So I don't know what you want me to do. It's a committee recommendation we've got before us.
Clarification, because I did raise a motion about having a different way of consultation, etc. And I thought this was it, but then I can't confirm it if it is. And usually, if it's from a motion, it actually says what. So,
councillor, we're happy to acknowledge you've raised this, and it is the intent of why you've been raising motions to get better consultation.
Yeah, okay,
So
well, that's one thing. Okay, so the other thing is on page 93, it actually says there the policy amended to provide the ability to waive this requirement when the application framework does not change when there's no greater impact on adjoining residents. Who decides that waiving? Do we have a person, a panel,
Ms. Shears?
Through you, Mr Mayor, that would be the planners as part of their assessment.
Okay, thank you. Then that I think should be in there so that people definitely know.
It
what
says
if council wanted to?
It says where officers are satisfied. All planning's done by officers in the city.
I know. So what if the council, and again, I made the comment before that in the definitions we should have council and city, because if people reading this don't understand the difference, and you know, rather than them targeting us when it's a city staff thing, I think if we put that in the definitions, which I've asked before, but I'm just saying that if council wanted to, there's no, the way this is written, it doesn't allow the council to make a decision. Usually it says in there something council city. Some things you can't because it relates to the DAP.
It is very, so state government has made it very clear what delegation councillors have in terms of planning decision making. This is very clear that it's city officers will determine as part of their normal assessment process. So it doesn't change delegations or anything. This is just purely about how the public consultation occurs during normal officer assessment.
When we have public consultation with some things, we've heard it tonight about different boardwalks, wherever they are, for and against, where we are in the city. And some things do go to DAPS because it's that level, some things don't. But if you read this, it's all in, all out. So I would have thought that we would actually have something in there to say that it can come to council for a discretion and not.
But it
otherwise
can't, so
we
it's
wouldn't know.
legislated, it can't. I think,
No,
let's
not
get
this doesn't necessarily say it's legislated.
But this doesn't, so you're taking one small part of the planning policy out though, and trying to make it apply to the whole planning policy.
No. What I'm saying is waiving public consultation.
I'll get Ms Shears to clarify for you, but that's not what happens.
That's the title.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the intent, this policy is used for public consultation when we are undertaking assessment for planning applications. So as part of that assessment, officers conduct the consultation in accordance with this policy. This particular clause around waiving public consultation is only applicable to sort of minor or insignificant changes to applications, which I believe the alt rec that Councillor Giudice has put forward is trying to clarify in terms of when that discretion would be used. It would only be for minor variations or minor changed applications, not for DAP scenarios. So the DAP is completely different. It's a different scenario in terms of advertising and things like that. This policy or this particular clause is only in relation to minor works.
That is actually my point. I'm saying there's a difference between DAP and non-DAP, but what I'm saying here, it actually says in there, in the policy about waiving it, and I'm concerned the way it's written. I know the intent, but if you're looking at it from someone from the outside who's reading it, then maybe just wordsmithing might have been better. That was my comment. It's like on page 96 where we've got information sheets available on the city's website to assist applicants, residents and community understand, participate in planning consultation. Do we think we should have had there across the business units? Because one of the things that we used to have is that it might be a DAP or an RAR, or it might not just be internally a planning one, but we used to have the different business units, community
But
and
Councillor,
engineering
again,
should be
I
in
would suggest that most of your questions are completely operational in how the city implements this policy. They're not related to the policy. These could have all been taken offline in the time between committee and now.
My point
Ms.
is,
Shears,
I've raised it before.
Do you cross-collaborate across departments when you're seeking to assess applications?
But what I'm saying
Through
is
you,
we
Mr.
don't-
Mayor, yes, we do. And in terms of the information we provide on the website, we do collate information that is required, say, from our traffic engineers to help applicants ensure that they've got a full sight on what the information is required.
What I've made mention of several times is that this is a great opportunity, which we used to
Councillor,
have.
you specifically said, I've got a question. I said, do you want to debate or oppose this, or do you have a question? You said, I've got a question. I asked you 3 times,
Well,
and
I'm
now you're
asking for
debating an item.
clarification.
It
You're
is not
telling me
fair
it's
on
in
the
there.
mover and
I'm
the
checking
seconder.
that it is. So my point is, we used to have, when we got a report, what came from engineering, what from community, to allow the staff. What I'm saying is, does it have to be written up in this policy like it used to be? What you're saying to me, you don't need to have that anymore.
You
because
don't
it's all
need to
done
know how
internally.
officers work at their desk, councillor.
I was an officer, thank you. I do know how.
But you're
people
not
work at
anymore.
the
You're a
desk.
councillor, and you don't need to run the planning department. It's up
I'm
to the
not
planning
saying
department
I'm running the
how
planning
their officers
department.
work.
All I'm saying is that it used to be.
This
in a
is not open
report
for debate,
an
councillors.
Mr Mayor, can I move that the motion be put?
That is a procedural. Is there a second that the motion be put? Councillor Hatton, that's it. I will now put, councillor, sit down. Move councillor Proud, seconded councillor Giudice. Sorry, it's blocked out my screen. I couldn't see it. There is no one opposed. I'll put that motion. That motion is carried. It is unanimous. Deputy Mayor is not in the chamber for the vote. Item 12.1 PCS1, closure of portion of Old Balcatta Road. Councillor Hatton.
Can I?
Yep, we'll get Mr Blanchard to read out declaration.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We have a declaration from Councillor Hatton. He is deemed to have a proximity interest as a person he is closely associated with, lives adjacent to the estate.
Thank you. So Councillor Hatton is leaving the chamber. Thanks, councillor. Yeah, well done, councillor. There is no screen with information from this meeting or sound out there right now. Let's be clear that just for the public record, this meeting is not being live streamed to the antechamber, and there is no sound available out there either. I will now go to Councillor Proud as chair of that committee to move the motion.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I was just thinking about the other stuff, see if you're on the ball. Very happy to move this item. We did debate this at length, and we did get some additional information in the memo that all of us would have seen.
That's fine. You've moved it.
So, yep, I've
Councillor
moved it.
Perkov has seconded it. Is there anyone opposed? There's no one opposed. I'll put that to the vote. Geez, the numbers are getting low. So noting that is unanimous, Councillor Hatton and Deputy Mayor are still out of the, and the Deputy Mayor is still out of the chamber for that vote. Thank you. Can we ask the Deputy, not the Deputy, for Chris Hatton to come back in, please? Just a side note, I don't know if any of you notice this, but every time an item like this comes up, it still amazes me in the area of the City of Stirling how many significant blocks of land, undeveloped lands, that are just hiding in areas that you forget about. We talk about no supply of land anywhere, they're everywhere. Yeah. For those watching at home, we are just waiting for Councillor Hatton to be retrieved. And yes. Councillor Hatton has returned to the chamber. We are at the balance of reports. Councillor Proud, as chair of the Planning and Development Committee, would you like to move the balance of reports?
I move the balance of reports.
Thank you. Councillor Perkov, I don't know, might drop that symbol, Councillor Perkov, but we'll take that as a second for the balance of reports. I'll put the balance of reports to the vote. I have to keep looking up for numbers here. I was just seeing how many we're at. I think we're at 11. Councillor Olo, we need a vote. Thank you. That is unanimous. So members of the gallery, those remaining, and those viewers at home, note that the remainder of those Planning and Development Committee recommendations listed on the agenda have been adopted by exception resolution. We'll now move on to 13, and we'll go to 13.1, which is Community and Stakeholder Engagement Policy Review. There is an alt rec. Do I have a mover of a motion? Councillor Ree. Happy to just put your mic on and say you're moving the motion, please.
Sorry, I'm moving the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Lagan, are you seconding?
I'm happy to second. I've just got a couple of questions.
So, and let me just check, because Councillor Ree's trying to be a bit clever here. Which one are we moving, Councillor Ree? Are we moving the alt rec or the other one? Just so we're clear on which one you're moving.
Yes, please, the alt one.
The alt rec.
Although it doesn't say up there what it just says attachment 4.
Yep. All right, Councillor Lagan, you seconding that? Did you say you have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question. Look, I'm happy with the policy, and I have spoken with officers this evening and had done a fair bit of research on this, and I just wanted to make a comment that the IAP2 element of the engagement and the process, as referenced in the state government review of local government policy as best practice, took me numerous hours to get my head around or to understand, and by sheer fluke I was able to find a document that I recommend everyone read It's called Public Participation Literature Review, and it was done by the town of Vic Park and explains this whole concept exceptionally well. It's a fairly short document as well. The only question I do have is, can officers please tell me, and it does follow on from the comment that was made through the public gallery and questions and response tonight, does the comms and marketing team, as shown in the budget, now sit with 18 staff, full-time FTE, or 19?
Mr Murphy. Mr Quirk. I've got a bum steer by the CEO.
That is a very specific question. I can certainly find out. I don't know the exact FTE number in one of my service areas, but I'm certainly happy to look at that whilst, if you have a second question, Councillor Lagan.
Yeah, no, it just shows...
Are you looking for headcount or FTE?
No, well, it shows in the budget papers on page 110 of the budget papers that it is 7 full-time FTE and 12 as part-time. I'm just trying to find out, in following on from the comment tonight, is it 19 or 18? Because there's two figures now, two different figures. Because that would impact the total budget expenditure on comms and marketing, which sits at around 3.19 million.
Thank you. And I'm sure we can take that offline, Councillor Lagan, and provide you that response. You made your
and
point.
look, only just one other comment, or the commentary is, although it took me a long time to get my head around this...
Councillor, you did say you had a question, for the same reason I said before.
It is an excellent document, well put together. I'd like to thank the officers for the work they've done on it. It's leading stuff and great to see.
Thank you. And there's no one opposed, so I'll put that to the vote. That motion is carried and it's unanimous. For the record, that's one of the first times you've asked a question and then haven't answered it yourself as well, Councillor Lagan. So that's good progress. I'll go on to item 13.2, use of civic facilities for citizenship ceremonies on page 154. Mover of motion, Councillor Kristovich. Seconder, Councillor Proud. Is there anyone opposed? No. I will just, before we go to the vote on that one, just provide clarity. There is a part in the actual report where it does mention that the Deputy Mayor presides, and then when you look at the list and it talks about the presiding member, it lists myself as a presiding member. On those ones, in that case, the introduction, I don't know the name of it because I haven't got the report in front of me, but in that case it's the Deputy Mayor who would actually do the introduction, the opening address, because the Mayor presides in general on those other three occasions, although they do interchange, but it's just the way it's written, just to clarify. There's no one opposed for that, so let's move Councillor Kristovich, second to Councillor Proud. The Deputy Mayor is back in the room for the vote on the citizenship ceremonies. And that, we're back to 12, and that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Notice of motion for consideration, 14.1, proposed notice of motion, Councillor Joe Ferrante, the intersection improvements on Wordworth.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to obviously put that motion forward.
Which one, councillor?
14.1 on page 159.
So, but there's two. There's the notice of motion and the suggested alternative rec.
I understand this is suggested. I haven't suggested that alternative. I've suggested what my original motion was.
So all right. Councillor Ferrante. Oh, I was going to say so. Deputy Mayor, you're seconding?
I'd like to suggest that I second, please.
All right. And we are talking, just to be clear, on your original motion. Thank you. Is there anyone opposed?
That's correct, Mr Mayor.
Thank you.
Not suggested.
Yeah. Is there anyone opposed? In that case, I will put that one. I'll put that one to the vote. Yes. And that motion is carried, with myself voting against. That's right. That's fine, it's carried. Item 14.2, proposed notice of motion from the Deputy Mayor, ECU Mount Morley. Can I just, before you say anything, can I just ask Councillor Giudice has declared an interest and he's leaving the chamber. That's right. Sorry. He has left the chamber. You may continue.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the notice of motion that the Chief Executive Officer writes to Development WA requesting the consideration of the retention of additional existing key infrastructure at the ECU Mount Lawley campus, which may benefit the diverse, growing local community, i.e. a library, sport and fitness centre, performing arts facilities, and that these facilities be handed over to the City of Stirling as part of the site redevelopment.
Thank you. And that is seconded by Councillor Ferrante. Are these? We have to put this one to the vote, though, don't we?
We need to see if we're going to debate it first.
Yeah, is there anyone opposed? Sorry, I got confused. I'm reading my agenda and it says proposed and it just confused me. We're further down. Yes, question.
Just when I read this, I suppose, in terms of the handover of facilities to the City of Stirling, do we know, for example, I mean, what would that be? I mean, are the facilities run down? Are they in good condition? How much does it cost? You know, performing arts centres can be quite expensive.
I would suggest, no, we don't, and that would be premature. I think the intent of this is that we haven't even had the discussion yet, and that's the intent of this.
But it's very specific that it says that these facilities be handed over to the city. We're asking for Development WA to hand these to us. So if this motion passes...
Yeah, it's for consideration. I'm quite comfortable they're not going to turn around and say, yes, you can have them. This is to sit down and have discussions and find out exactly all those things. The city would not, there would be a process of due diligence. You can't just take property from the state government.
No, well, that's just want to make sure that was the case.
So yeah, I can't imagine this happening tomorrow.
All right.
Yeah,
No.
we have time, but it's a good point. All those things would have to come into consideration.
Yeah.
I think the intent of this motion is a frustration that the councillors haven't had any involvement despite significant requests and lobbying on behalf of their community to be involved in the process, and it has been a very closed process. So this is about opening up and saying we want to be involved in the process. Council wants to have a voice as part of this. Deputy Mayor Megdale.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I certainly won't be debating this as no one is showing that they're against, unless I'm wrong. I just wanted to raise the point that with a community that is going to be growing by thousands of residents in the very near future, there is an opportunity to future-proof the area, the ward, by supplying, and why would we want to build a new facility when there are buildings, purpose-built buildings like a library that are not past their use-by date. So this is about deep diving and exploring opportunities, just to clarify. Thank you.
Thank you. And that is moved by the Deputy Mayor and seconded by Councillor Ferrante, so I'll put that to the vote. Thank you, and that is unanimous. Have we lost someone? Yeah, Councillor Giudice, that's it. Yeah, that is unanimous. I'm getting confused with the movement tonight. Can we ask Councillor Giudice to come back in? Councillors, we'll go to item 15, which is notice of motion for consideration at the next meeting. Councillors, do you now have any proposed notice of motions? Councillor Perkoff, you have one?
Thank you, Mayor. I do have one. We don't have it anywhere on the list, but I believe our officers will put something up that'll make sense. There it is. Mr Mayor, on the back of a fantastic effort by the lead petitioner and the great people of Gwelup, Karrinyup and Careen and surrounds, a magnificent petition, it's just prudent that we fortify this whole movement and that the Mayor writes to the member for Scarborough, the member for Careen and Water Corporation seeking a commitment to fully fund the reconstruction of the pedestrian bridge in Lake Gwelup Reserve between Porter Street and Pascoe Street, and the reason is below.
Thank you.
Boardwalk is important to the community and needs to be restored.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any other proposed notice of motions?
Oh,
Councillor Ferranti.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. My motion is up there now that a report be presented to CRC, a meeting to be held 26 November regarding a review of the complementary offers that we attach to the city's annual rate notices, and including the following as new proposed options, including free practice range golf at the new Hammersley Golf Course, free upgrade to the yellow recycling bins, free upgrades to large green waste bins, free family swim pass, free spin and similar classes at our gyms, and 1 annual parking fine credit, excluding disability days.
I'm speechless, councillor. I will. Yeah, we'll take it offline. Councillors, are there any other notice of motions? No other. Thank you. In that case, I'll go on to 16 questions by members of which due notice will be given. I have nil. 17 new business of an urgent nature. I have nil. That brings us to item 18, matters behind closed doors. Councillors, can I please have a mover and a seconder to go behind closed doors? Move, Councillor Lagan, seconded Deputy Mayor, and a show of hands to vote on that. Thank you. That is unanimous, noting that Councillor Ree has left the chamber.
Closed 8:38 p.m. Good night.